Cost of Victory, Book 1 of the Unseen Scar series by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 23. A little patch of grass cushioned his back. Taking in one slow breath after another, Ferdinand focused on the rise and fall of his abdomen. Oya won the race, but he won the fight. I need to stop this. This isn't good. I know better. But it felt good. Only running brought him any semblance of joy. Then Oya appeared, running by her side, fighting hand to hand, and her cube, searching through that treasure. I need to forget this. I need to give this up. Put her first. Ready for this evening? Oya's native Ondo danced joyfully in his ears. Don't remind me. Am I really doing that this evening? Making himself sick wouldn't be hard. A drawn-out sigh escaped as he rejected the idea. He'd failed enough the last many months. Another failure might break him. Smooth breaths turned shaky. His mouth tightened. Air shifted to the side of him, and a pleasant warmth materialized in the space between his head and shoulder. Daring a glance, Ferdinand found inhuman green eyes and blood-red hair grinning at him. If she laid any closer, their ears would touch. Something about her presence melted away the tension held in every muscle. Only a few more hours. If this doesn't work, I can't think of anything else to do, Ferdinand answered John honestly. Saying this to his sheltered, coddled ally was terrible, but he couldn't protect the boy anymore. Swallowing hard, he stepped toward the door, keeping his eyes averted from John and Oya. I'm sorry, Mother Artemis. I can't do any more. Taking the samples collected from Evelyn, Ferdinand headed to the biohazard area. There he waited. Ferdinand couldn't be still. He needed to do something. But until morning, there was nothing more he could do. This didn't feel like enough. That memory made him tense up. I've never done enough, have I? No, but it's coming anyway. Indeed. That grin turned Cheshire, and emerald green eyes drifted to the diamonds above. Awkward silence fell. She didn't move, laying beside him still and calm. He wasn't sure what to do. Then his unease faded. There wasn't a time Ferdinand remembered being comfortable around someone. This alone should trouble him, but it didn't. He loved it, and he hated himself for loving it, for wanting something he didn't deserve. Still, he laid there, praying she wouldn't move. Boats brought hundreds of people. Guests were ushered to chairs while they waited. Zhao fiddled with a near-invisible microphone wrapped around his ear. Then a cylinder of light hit him, drawing everyone's attention in the darkening evening. Dramatically, the lead swept his shiny blue cloak around. Hello, hello, honored guests, fellow students, most generous staff. Before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to my right-hand man for instructions. Lord Samoltz, take it away. The light swiveled to Ferdinand as he jumped upon a tree stump. Bowing, he swept his oversized green top hat past the tails of his matching coat. Greetings from the islands. We're grateful to each of you for coming, and we're excited to show you something new. That being said, this is new. We understand if you don't like it, but beg you see it to the end. If you're wondering why you're sitting in less than comfortable chairs on the beach listening to me talk, it's simple. The show starts here. Follow. I'll lead you through the appetizer and on to the main course. Ferdinand jumped down. The stars shone brightly. Now was the time. He projected as much whimsy and energy as Oya showed him, even though it was outright humiliating. But she'd insisted it'd make the show perfect. I'm glad my family isn't here. Snapping his fingers, tiny lights appeared on the ground, dancing around like will-o'-the-wisps. Playfully he led the audience down the lit path, setting the mood. Fireworks shot off as he passed the first checkpoint. There he stopped, allowing the crowd to enjoy them. Soon Sykes came out and read the audience's mind. You're wondering what we're doing here, aren't you, sir? Wow, those fireworks are beautiful. No wonder they chose to have this at night. Why is this child staring at me? Some of those thoughts made Ferdinand smirk. With a click of his heels and a magnanimous sweep of his hand, he led them to the next clearing, just as Oya demanded he do. Crazed green eyes fell from the highest branch of the tree behind the skeleton. Inches from hitting him, Oya stopped and circled his head a few times. Giving the audience her playful grin, she snatched his oversized hat and soared away. 4 other students shot out of the bushes and joined her in an aerial acrobatics performance. They looked like mischievous pixies. A confetti cannon exploded over the audience, covering everyone in 2 tons of teal glitter. It'd be months before they got it out of their hair. Good thing it was biodegradable, because it'd never come out of the sand. Moving on, they passed a number of students who took the hands of those closest to them. Diagnosing made-up diseases and conditions, they offered ridiculous remedies to cure what ailed them. It was silly, but it made the audience laugh. At the auditorium's entrance, 2 students stopped everyone. They were dressed in obnoxiously colorful military garb, painfully obnoxious. I'm sorry, sir, but you're forbidden from entering this place. Such silliness cannot be tolerated here. A third student, dressed suspiciously similar to one of the more serious instructors, stepped up. "But sir, our honored guests, they're hot and miserable and have traveled such a long distance. Can't you let them in?" Ferdinand grimaced, speaking such ridiculous words. "Who wrote this?" Come now," replied an older student representing the superintendent, with added monocle and crazy hair. "We mustn't let down the guests, especially honored ones. We must keep our alumni happy after all." If the script wasn't bad enough, the random squiggles painted on the superintendent's skin was cringeworthy. This was the best they could do? Everyone on the islands knew what those tattoos meant. Not representing the accomplishments Superintendent Day achieved would have been wrong. Neither could they, in good conscience, paint real symbols on someone who hadn't earned them. But this? It looked like Evelyn scribbled on the boy's face. "But sir, look at him! He isn't properly dressed!" The superintendent walked circles around Ferdinand. He fought laughter as hard as Ferdinand fought utter humiliation. "Quite right." The boy grabbed Ferdinand's arm, sending razor blades across his skin, and flung him aside. "I don't know what you're thinking, child. You don't even have a hat." The completely hatless, monocled boy approached the crowd and bowed. "Honored guests, please come, refresh yourselves with the nice cool air we've saved for you. Don't mind the riffraff, they won't be allowed in." The guards and instructor led the audience in and ushered them to their seats while the superintendent greeted them. When Dea reached the entrance, the superintendent made a fuss over the man mocking him. This encouraged a number of laughs, though, surprisingly, it took Dea a minute to realize the joke. With everyone distracted, Ferdinand ran to the side door. Oya flew behind him, catching his shimmery green jacket and bright orange poofy shirt as he threw them off. She dropped his tuxedo shirt to him. Bony fingers latched the last button and opened the back door. On the other side, Elby waited with a bow tie in one hand and a screen in the other. On the rack beside him was Ferdinand's immaculately tailored tails and cummerbund. Oya held his violin box patiently while he tied his tie. Straightening his jacket, Ferdinand grumbled to himself. He detested fitted clothing. This was only the first of a dozen such costume changes. He wasn't sure whose idea it was, but he'd been outvoted in the end. Violin and bow in hand, Oya closed the case and tipped the oversized top hat to him. It fell to her shoulders. Trying not to giggle too loudly, she pulled it off. "My hat!" The appropriately sized top hat was a classic black, with a blue band matching his cummerbund and bow tie. While he put it on, Oya fiddled with an opal rose in his buttonhole. The superintendent ran backstage and up to them, wiping the paint from his face. 60 seconds to cue. "Thanks." Ferdinand dashed to a spot, front stage right. It was dark, but the hum of the audience was deafening. "I feel sick." A cold finger brushed against his neck, leaving behind a line of perfect emptiness. Crazed green eyes flitted past his peripheral, giving him a wink. The door closed. All light vanished, and Ferdinand struck the first note. It was long, and he kept it going until the crowd settled down. Only then did he start the song. Stage lights slowly brightened, and all eyes drifted up to him. A laser projection joined him in a duet, then a second for a trio, a third and a fourth and a fifth, one projection after another until the audience was overwhelmed with an orchestra of strings, each playing different parts. This song didn't exist, but it pulled at their hearts. It lifted them high and dropped them low, spinning them around, thwarting all expectations. Then came a dramatic climax before winding down. One by one the projections faded, and at the end it was back to a duet. Then Ferdinand was alone. He drew out the last note, loath to let it end. Bowing his head, he lowered both arms to his sides, and the lights died once more. Silence. No one knew if they should applaud or not, so they waited. Lights jumped on with full vigor and energy. A new song started. Dancers swarmed from both sides of the stage, stopping in the middle, holding their ground against the opposite group. And when the drums kicked in hard and heavy, they moved again, stomping, clapping. Colorfully clad dancers moved aggressively, weaving in and out. Thunderous rolls and passionate cries warred back and forth. Everything escalated with drums. A projection of a younger boy playing the xylophone appeared. Each line of notes played influenced the battle, all according to the whim of the xylophone player. Oya twirled in the wings, but Ferdinand stepped forward with an older girl, and they sang their parts back and forth, cheering on their team to overcome the fate of those manipulative notes. When it ended, the room went black a third time, and everyone scattered from stage. Magnificent colored lights stunned eyes while distorted music beat against their ears. The show progressed from the choreographed battle to art and the magnificence of the human mind. It highlighted wonders of energy and life in the universe, all to music which hadn't been heard in countless centuries. One song was of particular pride and joy to Elby. He'd seen it as a painting. Designing the images himself, the young tinkerer programmed the planetary evolution to the ebb and flow of the music. All singing was divided between 6 students, 3 boys and 3 girls. 20 dancers took turns on stage. The instruments were more difficult. Aside from John and Ferdinand, only 3 others showed any proficiency. Pre-programmed projections were used heavily to pick up the slack. Multicolored lights flashed on and off in a seemingly random fashion when Zhao sang and danced to an obnoxious, lively, happy song. He told a story of a group at a dance in his attempt to represent the one weaver on the islands. There was no matching a weaver, but between the music and his boundless energy, he got the audience swaying and bobbing. Some were even clapping. Seeing them sucked into the show, it felt wonderful. The music oscillated between lively, soothing, and outright grating. Daya soaked in the audience's reaction. None knew how to take this. How did the sciences get a hold of forbidden music? Music that had been long since destroyed. Every part of him wanted to search it out, to stop it. But he knew his place, and his place was to wait. Foot tapping and head bobbing. This is impressive, using forbidden things to represent each classification. It was fitting. If the world knew about them, what they could do, they'd be declared improper, hunted down, and destroyed. Yes, this was most fitting. But how would the improper residents of these islands and their families respond to an equally improper performance? An elbow nudged his arm, stopping Daya's thoughts and dance. Leaning in, Bayer whispered, "We should stop this. It's pretty intense. I'm not sure the audience can handle it." No. Daya bobbed his head a few times and beat with the current, rather angry-sounding music. No, unless things get out of hand, we'll let the sciences show us what they've prepared. Are you sure? The backlash. Bayer frowned. The last few months, Daya had more meetings with students who were figuring out how to help their countries than in his whole career before now. Good or bad, this performance offered the island residents something different to focus on. He'd let it continue. That's a concern, brother, but this is the best performance they've ever given. Ferdinand wasn't lying when he promised to make every extra minute count. And how long has it been since someone did the show right? Bayer was confused. Read the description. You'll understand.